This guy was so desperate to pay off his debts that he faked his own death. John Darwin was a teacher. After that, he worked at a bank and then he became a corrections officer. He tried different get rich schemes on the side, like breeding snails to sell to restaurants. His biggest plan was buying properties. He ended up buying 14 properties, including a building with small apartments right next to his house in England. Unfortunately, none of those things worked, and by March 2002, him and his wife were £62,000 in debt. So he came up with a new plan. John would convince his wife to go along with faking his death to get life insurance money. On March 21st, John pretended to venture out into the sea in his canoe. He would hide for a short time before secretly coming back to their house in England. He stayed in one of these small apartments next to their house, which was connected by a secret door in the pantry. Trying to get away from England, John obtained a fake passport using the identity of John Jones, a male that had passed away. It wasn't until almost a full year later, after he faked his own death, that he and his wife began to see money rolling in. Anne, his wife, would receive £60,000 from a death in service payment that was made to Anne from the prison where her husband used to work. She also received a widow's pension. In 2006, John and Anne traveled to Panama. Shortly after they arrived, they rented an apartment in Panama City. The rental was arranged through estate agent Mario Villar, the owner and director of Move to Panama. While in Mario's office, the couple agreed to take a picture with Mario, who posted the photo to Move to Panama's website. Over the next year, Anne traveled back and forth between Panama and the UK, selling the properties that were, of course, under her name. She wired most of the money to Panama, where the couple had bought a two-bedroom apartment in Panama City and a tropical estate in Colon. They wanted to turn the estate into an eco-tourist attraction. Everything was going well until June 2007, when John found out that Panama's visa laws had changed. Now, people with investor visas needed character statements from their home country's police. John knew his fake passport would not be validated. In October 2007, Anne sold their last UK property and went back to Panama. John told her they needed these character statements and suggested a plan. He would go back to the UK, turn himself into the police, and pretend he had amnesia. On December 1st, 2007, out of nowhere, Darwin randomly walked into a police station in London and said he couldn't remember the last 7 years. He said, "I think I might be a missing person." The police confirmed who he was, contacted his sons, and they were quickly reunited. They didn't know this, but the police were already investigating Anne for her financial activities since John's disappearance. On December 4th, just 3 days after John showed up, he was arrested. Anne pretended to be shocked by John's return, but her act didn't last long. Someone found the photo of them in Panama and sent it to the police and a newspaper. On December 5th, the newspaper published the photo on the front page. A journalist went to find Anne in Panama. She came back to the UK. On December 9th, she was arrested. In March 2008, John Darwin admitted to 7 charges of lying and denied 15 similar charges. During one hearing, Anne pulled her hand away from John when he was trying to hold it, and she was often seen in court without her wedding ring. She claimed she was trapped and manipulated by John. On July 23rd, 2008, they were both found guilty of fraud. John got 6 years and 3 months in prison, while Anne got 6 years and 6 months in prison. John was released in January 2011, and Anne was released 2 months later. The Darwins collected over £500,000 in life insurance money. They were ordered to repay this amount, plus an extra £40,000 from John's pension. By July 2015, their debts were settled, and they had no assets left. The Darwins divorced while still in prison. In 2015, John married a Filipino woman named Mercedita, or Mercy, who is 23 years younger than him. As of 2022, John lives in Manila with Mercy, working with her in her clothing style business. He gets a UK government pension of about £134 a week. After prison, Anne worked for the RSPCA. In 2016, she wrote a memoir with the same journalist, David Lee, who had published the photograph. The book is called Out of My Debt, sharing her side of the story. Since then, Anne has avoided publicity. In April 2022, the Daily Mail reported she was living alone in a village in North Yorkshire, often seen hiking, but mostly keeping to herself. The Darwins' relationship with their sons has been complicated since their arrest. Both Anthony and Mark Darwin testified against their parents at the trial. Mark said the media knew about his parents' schemes before he did. When John and Anne were convicted, their sons disowned them, with one calling Anne a, quote, hideous lying bitch, end quote. By 2018, both of their sons reconciled with their mother, but Mark said they would still not trust either of them with money.